Good evening, friends, and welcome to a second live broadcast with Crime Time with DutyRon and Ed Wallace. This broadcast is about Karen Reed. We know she's innocent. She was it came down Wednesday. She is innocent of the charges, exonerated, found not guilty. But what happened? What occurred inside of 34 Fairview? And that's the topic of tonight's live stream. I want to say thank you to the replay viewers, the super chatters, the moderators, the folks who send us by me cups of coffee, and everyone who positively engages here. Thank you for spending some of your Friday evening with Ed Wallace and DutyRon. We appreciate it. So this is the buzz of the night last night. Turtle Boy showed this on one of his live streams. He posted it on his Twitter. He said that he's been holding on to this picture because of the trial, and that's a good thing. But we heard Dr. Lamposada try to make mention of this picture, and Bev struck it from the record. In her testimony on direct with Alan Jackson, she makes mention of photographs of the inside of 34 Fairview, and it was a big deal. She made a big deal out of it. Said, no, strike that from the record. You can't talk about that. Lifeguard Bev to the rescue. Your thoughts on what we're seeing here, Ed? Is this blood? What is this?
I don't know. I don't think it's blood. It's too dark and too thick. And now, this picture, this photograph was taken in 2023. Is it? I'm not sure. That appears right to be AJ, Alan Jackson.
Yeah, this is Alan Jackson. He's inside 34 Fairview in the garage.
Yeah. So it appears to be some kind of paint or stain. Really, if it was blood, why would the Alberts keep that there? Why would they, or why would they throw paint on top of blood? It looks like maybe the can fell there and impacted the wood and then created, large spill. You could see some rivulets to the left, and then you could see a lot of pooling below on the concrete floor. If I saw that, I would, photograph it properly. I would use an alternate light source to see if it turns black, because UV blood will absorb UV wavelengths of light and turn black in its presence. I would use infrared photography. I would try to scrape up a portion of it with a scalpel and see what's underneath it, see if I can get down to the concrete, or I could take out my saw and cut those 2x4 cross pieces out between the studs and separate them to see what's in there, and then perform blood tests. I would have the human blood test and test it, OBTI it's called, right. And see if I can get some kind of reaction.
Would you cut pieces of this concrete out to see if there was seepage? Like we talked about this crack here.
I would definitely cut portions on the floor where the crack is, right? In case, somebody tried to throw paint on top of blood, which makes no sense, because really they had all the time in the world to clean this up, because the cops never went in here. They never did an investigation inside the house. They never searched the house. They never got consent. They never got a warrant. They never treated anybody in this house as a potential suspect.
Right. Let's play devil's advocate here, Ed. Okay, realistically, anything's possible. We know that, right? But if you are a homeowner here and John O'Keefe bled out here, would you? I mean, it doesn't make sense to just throw some stain or paint. I don't know. We don't know what the substance is. It's just a picture that we're looking at. But if in fact they did do something silly like that and thought, well, no one's ever going to come in here, the only real way to determine what this is to scrape up portions of it and get down to below it.
Get it to the lab.
Yeah, get it to the lab.
Yeah, I mean, if I'm able to scrape it down, I've cleaned up dried paint before, right, on different surfaces like raw wood, concrete. If I'm able to cut through, especially like in the transit system or in NYCHA, in the New York City Housing Authority, right. I've taken a scalpel and I've gotten down to the bare sheetrock or to the bare metal or whatever the case may be. And you can see, like on a column in the New York City subway system in a platform, I was able to take a scalpel and cut down to the steel, and you could see how many layers over the years of paint were in that paint sample I took. And
Right.
you could see it with your naked eye, but obviously with a polarizing light microscope, you can see it even further, and you can count the number of layers, and so you would know how many times that column was painted over the years.
Right. And this seems like, it's just like a poured, like something spilled there. Somebody took something and just spilt it there. You could see the drippings down, and
Well, there appears to be some damage to the wood in that circle area in the center. You see that arc there? I mean, that could look like a can of paint, right? You see how it's arced there?
right.
Yeah. So, maybe a can of paint slipped out, or stain slipped out of somebody's hands and hit that thing. And then I don't see any spatter.
Look, there's some over here, Ed.
Yeah, I see that there too. Right. I don't see any spatter. Some of these things here to the left and right could be what we call contact transfers. Paint gets on a hand or a surface and then it's wiped on there. It could be that, but I don't see any secondary spatter where the substance is dripping into a pool and then it will radiate outward in tiny droplets. I see a big pool of blood.
Right here. Yep.
Well, not blood, but substance.
Right. Look, I know this has many people up in arms, and people are speculating that it's all different things. But what you can say, not definitively, but this isn't indicative of blood like what we saw in the Idaho college.
Yeah, with the blood on the concrete outside the house. Yeah,
that is not this.
No, and I mean, blood does darken over time. Okay. Right. But not like this. But typically what ends up happening, because concrete is porous, it will absorb this. Okay. And wood is porous. It will absorb a lot of the substance.
Yeah.
It's just too dark. And, but you can't tell from this picture because, like, how many screenshots is this, right?
Exactly.
It's not the original photograph.
Yeah. These are screenshots. I would love to get a hold of Attorney Jackson and just pick his brain apart about this. But I wanted to highlight this comment. Tara Ellis sends in a 5 and she says, just had to tell you, Yannetti and Alessi are doing an interview right now on Runkle. And Alessi said he watched you guys at night for your analysis.
Really?
So I did speak by text message with Mr. Yannetti. And he said that he does want to come on and do an interview with us. So I spoke with him on direct message on social media, and I sent it just today, and he responded. I didn't even think he was going to respond, to be honest with you, Ed. But I sent him a message just thanking him for doing such a great job. I told him about what we do, and because I don't know if this guy knows us, so I said, here's the link to our channel. We're 9/11 World Trade Center first responders, and we covered this trial. And he answered within 3 or 4 hours. He answered back and said, "Hey, I showed you the screenshot, Ed."
Yeah. So cross your fingers. We're going to have them on our show.
Yeah, I think it should be interesting, because what we'll do is we'll set up some questions from the listening audience. We'll set up a questionnaire in our Discord group. And in the Facebook group, there's, I think, 5,000 or so, or 4,000 and change people in our Facebook True Crime, Crime and Justice chat group. So we'll send out like a questionnaire. Hey, what questions do you want us to ask as it pertains to the trial? And we'll ask them viewer questions, and we'll take live questions from the audience. So I think it'll be interesting and an amazing show.
I tell you what, I'm blown away with that. That they actually watched our show and gave us props and shouted out on another show that they did that.
Yeah, really cool. So she must have been watching. Thank you, Tara, for the heads up. Thank you for being a channel member. And we're looking forward to, I want to speak, if we can, with the whole team. Bring Alan, Jackson, the whole crew, Miss Little, and whoever wants to come. I basically said, you guys have an open invite. So it's pretty cool to hear from the guys. But Ed, let's get back to this. We talked a little bit about this. This looks like, could it be part of this paint or slash stain, or is that an anomaly in the wood? Like,
Yeah, you can't tell from a two-dimensional photograph, right? I would have to get there, but it's giving some three-dimensional characteristics that's maybe indicative of an impact, like a heavy can of paint, a heavy gallon can of paint, or a head. All right. And we saw, the good doctor's testimony about, that it was an edged surface with some texture to it.
Right. Yeah.
So it could be either the wood or it could be this concrete edge here, right? I mean, either one of those things, if his head fell on it, could cause those types of injury that he sustained to the back of his head.
Yeah, and look at this comment here. It looks like blood. Again, Alan Jackson was inside the home with permission from the new homeowners. Okay, he had permission for them to come in and do whatever they had to do. So he had a private investigator with him. I don't know who else was with Mr. Jackson, but that's him leaning there. You could tell just by looking at his clothing, the shoes, his side of his face. But this is him inside the garage. And Dr. Lamposada, she made a mention about inside the home at 34 Fairview and inside the garage photos.
Mm-hmm.
So I have to assume that the defense shared this photo with Dr. Lamposada. Won't you agree, Ed?
Oh yeah, definitely. She
100%.
was going down that road with her testimony when Judge Bev slammed the gate closed.
Yeah, she slammed it.
Or should I say, slammed the garage door closed?
Yeah, exactly.
Can I tell a blood story?
Of course, you could tell whatever stories you want to tell.
For those of you who are new, we have, we do shows in the past. Go look up some of our old Forensic Friday shows, okay? And I did one whole show on bloodstains, how they're made, how they're tested, all this stuff. So take a look at that. But I can't tell you how many times I would get into arguments with what we call squad detectives. Each precinct has a precinct detective squad at crime scenes, telling me that a substance is blood, and I'm looking at it right away and I know it's not blood, right? And the guy, the detectives would get into these arguments with me. I said, look, I know my business. I know it's not blood, but I'm going to test it for you, and just to alleviate your concerns. And he goes, well, how do you know it's not blood? I said, just there's a trail. Did you follow the trail? Did you see where the trail goes?
Right.
I said, we can do that. But first, look a couple of drops away from where we're standing and tell me what you see. And one drop had ants all over it. I said, ants don't go after blood like this.
No.
This is a sugary substance that looks like blood. Okay. And ants are attracted to that type of thing. So I said, okay, now let's just follow this trail before I do the test. Let's just follow this trail and see where it leads us. So we go down the sidewalk, we make a right-hand turn, follow it down, all of a sudden on the sidewalk, it turns into a front yard of a house, and here's a little girl with an icicle, a red icicle.
Oh my God.
Okay. I said, okay, all right. I think we found the source of your blood. And then I went and did the test anyhow to show him. And I said, look, I stuck the swab in it, and the swab was able to stand straight up by itself when I let it go because of the sugary stickiness of the substance. And I said, okay. And I tested it, and I said, look, it's not blood.
Holy crap. And that's a great story involving a child sitting there with a little sugary pop. MPB2, you could go over to the Discord group. You can email me through the website. Go to DutyRon.com and just put in the question. Just put in the comment, question for show with attorney Unetti and Alessi. What do you got up on the screen? Ed, I'm about to play Dr. Lamposada's 2-minute piece when Alan Jackson direct questioned her. But go ahead. What do we got up?
So Okie Dokie 7 says, Ed, so what would be the best way to test the rest of that garage for evidence and the basement? First thing you want to do is all the non-destructive testing first. So you want to use an alternate light source. You shut all the lights off in the garage or in the basement, and then you scan in the UV wavelength with an orange barrier. And you look for areas that will turn black. Because remember, blood absorbs UV and turns black in the presence. Now, in that show that we did, the Forensic Friday show we did with blood, I showed several photographs of where crime scenes were altered by the assailants in a bloody crime scene where they tried to paint over the blood stain, and the UV light manages to penetrate through the paint and make this blood that's behind it turn black in those areas where they, didn't, they painted over. Okay. Next, I would use infrared photography. And then after that, if I would search, and I would use luminol or blue star. I would probably prefer blue star, where I would mix the chemical and put my camera on a tripod, get it all set up to take a time exposure, and then spray certain areas. And if I get a blue chemical luminescence, it could be an indication that blood is there. So that's how I would perform those functions.
Ed, let me ask you for the audience, and I know people probably would have this question. If you were asked to go, now I know we are covering we covered this trial from beginning to end, but if you were asked to go, and just let's say hypothetically we weren't covering this trial, would you go and now lots of time, this crime scene happened in 2022. So would you now go to 34 Fairview and do a full workup on that garage or any other area?
With the permission and consent of the new homeowner, yeah, if, I could do that. I would definitely do that. But
it would be worth it.
What's that?
Do you feel it would be worth it?
You never know what you can find. I mean, think of what they've been doing with Jimmy Hoffa. I mean, they did luminol work on a house in the Detroit area where they pulled up the floorboards where they thought he may have been killed and blood might have seeped through the tongue and groove floorboards. And, how many years afterwards,
Yeah.
So yeah, you never know what you're going to find. If you don't look, you don't find.
I agree. And this is what we're referring to right here, this photograph. So I'm going to remove it and then grab the Lamposata video. This is interesting because you get to hear in real time how Lifeguard Bev shuts her down. I'm only going to play about 2.5 minutes of it. Alan Jackson on direct.
What are we looking at?
Yes. So we're looking at the back of Mr. O'Keefe's head and an injury caused by the angular acceleration going down and hitting his head in the back. And then this is also a patterned injury. So what we see is the horizontal tear of the scalp, and we can see it's undermined a little bit. So that means the direction is going from bottom to top. Also, we see these sort of vertical lines in here and down below. So what that tells me is that the back of his head hit something that had a fine granular pattern to it to cause those individual little marks. And then also something that had a linear or ridged pattern that he went back on that broke the scalp there. So we have two parts really to this pattern injury. We have the horizontal tear of the scalp made by impact with some sort of ridged surface. And then we have these vertical scraping of the skin above and also below. They're obscured a little bit by the ruler there, which says that whatever he hit had some little like granularity to it with each little sort of granule making those vertical marks, and then the ridged pattern having the major point of impact.
what is the significance of the pattern when you say ridged pattern and there's two things we're looking at, the laceration or the abrasion versus the defect above and below that laceration?
Yeah, so what what this injury tells me, or what I would tell the investigators, is that Mr. O'Keefe went back onto some object that had some sort of ridge to it to make that horizontal tear in the skin. But that ridge also had, it wasn't smooth. It had some little grainy
Texture.
grainy thing sticking up on it that would make each of then these little things. And then it's the job of the police then to go back to the scene and look around for something which might fit that pattern.
We can take that down.
You can't ask Proctor to do that. He would never do that.
Yeah, nobody stepped foot in anywhere within that home other than the kitchen area. I think they described it as the mud room and the kitchen area, and then that was about it.
You know, if anything we learned from the various text messages that came out into this trial amongst the Mass State Police, they seem to have a habit of bullying the medical examiner's personnel into making their findings of what they want it to be and not what the medical evidence shows. Because even with the Sandra Birchmore case, they appeared to have bullied the medical examiner into suicide.
Right. And who was the lead detective on the Birchmore case? Trooper Proctor. Scumbag Trooper Proctor. The reason I'm playing this, Ed, is, and then you know why, is because unbeknownst to us, he had a look at that picture that we were looking at in the garage. And what she's describing here in his head wound is indicative of something, some type of, that injury would match that exact location inside the garage.
We would say that is consistent with a source that could cause that injury.
Objection, not overruled.
Did you, in furtherance of your investigation, coming to your opinions and conclusions, look at the area of 34 Fairview?
The outside, yes.
Meaning photographs?
Yes.
Did you also see photographs of any significance to you related to the garage, the interior of the garage?
Sustained.
Objection, sustained immediately. And Alan Jackson, when he was interviewed, he was interviewed by a couple of different outlets, news outlets. He said, one sit down in particular, he said, this is the first trial that in my 30 years where every objection was sustained by the judge for the prosecution. Every one.
For this witness.
Yeah. Not only for this witness, but almost every witness. But yeah, for this witness.
Jurors, disregard that comment, that question.
Related to the garage, did you?
The outside, yes.
Meaning photographs?
Yes.
Did you also see photographs of any significance to you related to the garage, the interior of the garage?
Sustained. Jurors, disregard that comment, that.
Hank Brennan said, please give the jury instructions. Did you hear that, Ed?
Mm-hmm.
Unbelievable.
Question.
What part of the area did you see? What part of the location did you see?
Excuse me. I saw all the scene photographs taken by the police, which showed the front yard in the area where Mr. O'Keefe was found. I also saw some photographs of the inside of the house and the inside of.
So I'm going to stop you there, Dr. Lapasada. Jurors, I'm striking anything after what the pictures from outside, Mr. Jackson.
Why do they want those photos, that photo, and maybe any others that we don't know about, not to be entered in as evidence?
And don't think the jurors weren't affected by this, because
They were.
the two jurors that came out already said Karen Reed was innocent, not guilty, or they said innocent. Okay, big difference. And they said, as to who did it, there were so many holes in the investigation. They didn't have enough information about that. So they were looking for information, and I'm sure they were pissed because every time they tried to get information to the jury that Brennan would object, she would sustain, and they couldn't get the information.
Yeah.
Part of the location did you see?
I saw all the scene photographs taken by the police, which showed the front yard in the area where Mr. O'Keefe was found. I also saw some photographs of the inside of the house and the inside of.
So I'm going to stop you there, Dr. LaPasada, jurors. I'm striking anything after what the pictures from outside, Mr. Jackson. Move on.
Let's stay with the outside of the home.
That was like she was like yelling at him, essentially. Move on.
Yeah, she barked at him in front of the jury, and she barked at the defense a lot. She didn't bark at Brennan when he made material misrepresentations to the court, when he lied to the court, and when he prosecutorial misconduct with the shirt. She didn't bark at him.
Yeah. 3-Chord Dave, good to see you. Thank you for being here from NBC 10. He was in there daily, making a lot of fun and having a good time with the live chatters. He said Bev's colluding with the Commonwealth. Yeah, she did. She was doing that all along throughout this whole trial.
From outside jurors, I'm striking anything after what the pictures from outside, Mr. Jackson. Move on.
Let's stay with the outside of the home. Did
Yes.
you see the front lawn area?
Yes, I did.
How did you, what did you note about the front lawn area?
Well, I was looking at the area where Mr. O'Keefe's body was found because we know once he came back and slammed his head, he's not going to get up and move around.
So, yes, I'm going to strike the second part of that. Just answer the questions.
Oh, stop the shit. Even their own
I'll try, Your Honor.
neurologist said, once you get an injury like that, you're going to be incapable of movement.
Yeah, what was so bad about that?
Thank you.
Your mic is a little low.
What was so bad about that?
No, exactly.
It's crazy.
You already testified to it.
Where his body was found.
Because then I could identify an object possibly there that would have caused the injury on the back of his head.
Did you see any such object in any of the photos that you reviewed?
No, there was nothing. There was a flat grass surface.
Would the flat grass, let's assume that the grass was very cold and very hard. The dirt was very cold and very hard. Would falling backward onto that dirt, hard or not, would that cause the patterned injury that you see, that we just saw in Exhibit 160?
No.
Right. And because of Lacard's exchange principle, there would be grass and dirt and minerals and everything that's associated with that soil in the wound.
Right. Yeah.
Why do you say that?
Because if you fall back on a flat surface, you get many times the tear you get in the scalp can be more like a star because you've just hit one part and then the tears go in kind of a star pattern. And also because you would not have those discrete vertical scraping of the skin. You would tend to, if you fell back on grass, you would tend to see, you might see grass in the wound, or you would tend to see an irregular kind of crisscross pattern of the flattened grass. And that's not what we have here on Mr. O'Keefe.
And this is all a part of pattern identification, right? What did I tell you? Wounds and weapons, right? What caused that wound? And you have to be able to identify the pattern. So she had a linear line laceration, okay? And the soil wouldn't be able to do that because there's not an edge there to create that surface. So you would get the star wound that she's exclaiming.
All right, I want to move on because one of the jurors, well, actually two, a male and a female, but one of the jurors spoke out, Paula Prada. She was an attorney in, I believe, Spain, right? Yeah, not an attorney here.
No, Brazil.
Brazil. Thank you.
Mhm.
So an attorney in Brazil, but residing here in the States, not practicing law here. It was fully disclosed when she was screened by the prosecution, by the Commonwealth, and by the defense. But she talks this is on the Today Show, and it's only I'm only gonna play about 4 minutes of this. But let's listen to what she had to say as it pertains to the evidence that was presented to it. And they ask a couple of good questions, because they ask her, what was the turning point for you? Did you feel Karen was guilty up front? Anything about Karen Reed, her demeanor bother you? And she was pretty open about almost everything. Ed, you saw this, right?
Yes.
Let us know in the chat if you saw this interview. Let us know if you haven't. Put a 1. If you have, put a 2. I like to switch it up with the 1s and 2s. So if you watch this and seen it, put a 2. If you haven't, put a 1.
Decide Karen Reed's fate. And joining us now is Paula Prado, one of the jurors who helped decide Karen Reed's fate. Ms. Prado, good morning to you. As I understand it, you're also a lawyer by training in Brazil. So there's a distinction here. Sometimes jurors say, okay, we think she is innocent. And sometimes they say, we think she's not guilty. The prosecutors just didn't prove the case. For you, which one was it? Do you believe that Karen Reed was innocent?
Yes, I do believe she was innocent. I believe if it was a collision, this collision was very little and wasn't enough to cause the death of John O'Keefe. So for me, it was for the past 3 weeks, I was very confident to say that she was not guilty and she's not responsible.
So Paul, if you believe that, if you believe she was in fact innocent, what do you think happened to John O'Keefe that night?
That's a trick question because I can't prove anything. So, but I do believe he died inside the house. Something may happen.
There it is, right there, ladies and gentlemen. She said, I believe he died inside that house. Now, remember, these jurors are not seeing everything that we've seen. They're seeing what's been presented to them. And if they paid close attention to Dr. Lamposada's testimony and everybody else's, you would pick up. If you're, absorbing everything, Ed, right, you're going to pick up that all of these objections and strikes from the record, and when they're mentioning that it potentially could have been a different set of circumstances, and everything was shut down. The defense was handcuffed. Their hands were tied behind their backs because of Judge Beth.
There are people saying there's no evidence that he was inside the house. I respectfully disagree. The prosecution's own witness, Ian from Canada, who did the cell phone work, his information about the number of steps and so forth, transitioning, his stuff can put John in the house.
Right.
Okay.
Health data.
And he admits it. The several models that he had, the circles, up from the street on the lawn into the house. Right. Several of them go into the house.
Yep.
Happened in front of the house when she dropped him off, because she woke up saying, maybe I hit him, look at my taillight. She made this connection of the taillight being cracked with he not being home. So maybe she did hit something when she dropped him off. And as she drove off, like mad, going home upset because he didn't came back from the house, I think John O'Keefe went inside the house and something happening there.
What do you think of the defendant herself? You were able to watch her live in the courtroom day after day, but she did not take the stand. Do you wish she had? And what was your impression of her?
Yeah, at first my impression was she gave me a vibe of being too confident, and that wasn't good for me personally. I expected to see someone more, sad or quiet. And she all the time showed herself with she was very calm. She was very participative of her defense and confident. Her looks to the witnesses and to the prosecutor and everybody around. She was very focused on the trial and very alert of everything that was going on. And after a while, I admire that. I think she was doing what she had to do for herself. She was, fighting for her life, pretty much.
Paula, there was so much evidence presented over the few weeks of this trial. went on, was there a single piece of evidence that you found as a juror and as an attorney, a single piece of evidence that was the most compelling, that really convinced you she did not do it?
The taillight. So having a close look at the taillight in the deliberation room, they gave us the piece that was originally broken. That taillight, compared with the videos of Karen Reed leaving the house in the morning at 7:07, I think, when she first got out of the house to go look for him, I saw it, and most of us, I think, saw it, like her taillight was red, mostly red, so it wasn't compatible with the taillight fully broken that we had in front of us. So that's over there was the reasonable doubt we were looking for.
What about the fact that this trial is so high profile? I mean, there were crowds outside the courthouse every day. In fact, when the verdict was read, you could hear from inside the courtroom, as I'm sure you did, the cheers go up. Were you aware of that? Did that weigh into any of your decision making? How did that play into the dynamic there?
The first time we heard something outside was on the day of the verdict, when we heard them chanting when we said not guilty. Before that, as we drive to the courthouse, the bus would drop us off behind the courthouse and the streets were closed. So honestly, we couldn't see anything or hear anything. And in the courthouse, inside the deliberation room, they covered everything, the windows, so we didn't have a view from outside.
So she basically said they covered everything. The windows were covered so they couldn't look outside.
Mhm.
And they did that on purpose for a very good reason. They didn't want any of the jurors to see
All
the
right, they didn't want the
support
influence.
holding signs up, free, even though they weren't supposed to have signs that say free Karen Reed. I believe it was for that reason there. And what was great is that she just confirmed that they did everything that they could humanly possible to shield them from having any bias, for taking one side or the other. And you heard from Paula, she said in the beginning she thought she was thought differently. She thought Karen was guilty. And as the trial went on, she heard the evidence, and the evidence spoke to her. She talked about the taillight.
Honestly, we knew there were some people there, because as we drive around, we see some people in pink, and we imagined that there was some movement inside the courthouse. Outside the courthouse, but we couldn't hear anything. And I had no clue the amount of people that were outside until I come out and watch on the TV last Friday.
Paula, you were visibly...
Last Friday, no, sorry, last Wednesday.
We knew what you meant, but Paula, you were visibly emotional as you left the courtroom. You were in tears. But why? Why were you so emotional as you left?
Because I'm a mother, and I've been watching his family over this past 2 months, and I know I can't imagine what they're going through. And as much as I'm confident that we did the right thing and she's not guilty, I feel sorry that justice wasn't served to John O'Keefe and John O'Keefe's family. And it's the reason why I'm coming out and talking to people is to keep the flame going and the supporters going after the GA or whatever they have to do to reopen the case and find who really killed John O'Keefe.
Amen.
You have a theory about that?
Yeah. I like this woman. I really like what she said here. And I've listened to, she's done many interviews, and Sunday, this weekend, Sunday night, she's going to be joining Turtle Boy live. I saw him post that on his Twitter account. So she's going to be going live with Turtle Boy Sunday night. So if you want to catch her interview on there, go over and check it out. Should be an interesting interview because he knows everything about the case. Ed, I just wanted to get your thoughts, because we heard from a male juror as well. Some of the things he said rang true here. I'm just going to cue it up, and we're not going to listen to all of it, but they play in this next piece that I show both of these jurors talking. So I just want to get your thoughts on him.
Oh, okay. So he seemed to be more tuned to the science. He took a great interest in the taillight and the fact that the taillight was working after they said it was involved in that collision at 12:30 something a.m. When he looks at the 507 video and he looks at the time they collected the vehicle from Karen Reed's father's house that the taillight was illuminating. Well, it can't illuminate without those diffusers, and the diffusers were broken in the Sally port. So then there's no way those lights should have been red, and they were. And so that's why he didn't buy it. And then the sergeant's testimony, told him everything he needed to know.
Yeah, amen. And thank God for Sergeant Barros, an honest police officer, an honest supervisor. He had no connection to the Norfolk County Homicide Squad from the Massachusetts State Police or the Canton PD or the homeowners at 34 Fairview. So that was big. And I think it resonated with these jurors.
Well, Raul, with 2 of the 12 jurors speaking out so far, they both said there were just too many holes in the case to find Karen Reed guilty. In fact, both of them told us that they believe she's innocent. Both jurors shared that they listened to Judge Beverly Cannoni's instructions and did not take an initial poll on guilt or innocence. They went through the charges one by one and essentially ruled them out, except the OUI charge, of course. For one of those jurors, Jason, who spoke with TMZ, he wasn't convinced there was police corruption, as the defense suggested, but he also thought there were serious problems with the police investigation. Another juror, Paula, who spoke with NBC 10 Boston, was an attorney in Brazil before moving to the U.S. She says she believes John O'Keefe went inside the house at 34 Fairview Road, where he met his fate, and that he was not killed by Karen Reed's SUV.
As the weeks passed by, I just realized there was too many holes that we couldn't fill, and there's nothing that put her on the scene, in our opinion, besides just drop John O'Keefe off. And the taillight, the injuries in his arm didn't make much sense that come from the taillight for us.
It seemed to me that the videos that we could see from the car after the alleged incident happened, that when we could see the taillight, it was lit up red where it shouldn't just have been red.
Following the verdict, Mass State Police Colonel Jeffrey Noble wrote on X, "The events of the last 3 years have challenged our department to thoroughly review our actions and take concrete steps to deliver advanced investigative training, ensure appropriate oversight, and enhance."
They did no investigation, period. They did nothing. As it said in 16 hours in the text string with Trooper Proctor, the girl is going to catch shit.
We're going to pin it on the girl.
Pin it on the girl.
And did you see his interview? My jaw dropped.
I don't want to show it.
But he said he wouldn't change a thing in the way he conducted this investigation. Are you freaking kidding me? Then he goes on to say that, well, maybe I should have just looked at a few more cars just to say I did it. Just to say you did it? Well, this guy's an idiot. He shouldn't have. Every case that he's ever handled should be re-looked at. Okay. He should never have been a detective. He should not be investigating anything.
And his wife backed him up. Anybody see that his wife in the backyard said, what he did, it was upsetting to me, he had texting, but we've moved on. We moved beyond that. Like, what?
He interviewed 3 people, right? 3 people, 2 McCabe's and an Albert. Boom. Case solved.
Yeah, case solved. Let's listen to Dave Yannetti. He speaks a little bit here, and they show his emotion in the court. It was amazing to see him put his head down, and it looked like he was in prayer or just, just closing his eyes and probably talking to God. But it was really an unbelievable moment. Very emotional. Got a lot of people in tears when that verdict was read in court, in open court, and the reactions from the team.
Her since the beginning. Reed called Yannetti just hours after John O'Keefe was found in the snow. Called Yannetti just only been with her since the beginning. Reed called Yannetti just hours after John O'Keefe was found in the snow. And then on Wednesday, he got emotional as the verdict was read in court. Yesterday, he opened up about his experience representing her.
It went from, what may have been, a run-of-the-mill motor vehicle homicide to the case of the century. There were so many twists and turns and ups and downs, and we had so many obstacles in front of us. But if you ask me, did I think then that this would become what it became? Not in a million years.
Now, Karen Reed's legal troubles are not over. Despite the end of her criminal case, she still faces a civil lawsuit. Last summer, John O'Keefe's family filed the suit against Reed, as well as two Canton bars, C.F. McCarthy's and the Waterfall Bar and Grill. The family alleges Reed's reckless conduct resulted in O'Keefe's death. They also say the two bars were negligent in serving her alcohol in the hours before. The lawsuit is seeking at least $50,000 in damages. Now, for complete coverage of the case and the verdict.
Unbelievable. It is what it is. Ed, I wanted to go to the live audience and get some of their thoughts. The photos inside the garage at 34 Fairview, and I can't help but to go back to them, because let me tell you, when I saw it, I first shook my head, and I said to myself, who better than Ed Wallace to talk about this? So I'll let you take the floor as it pertains to that. And again, people say, why didn't, at that time in 2023, when they were in that house taking those photos, why wasn't any of that evidence allowed to come into record?
Well, we don't know what happened to it. We don't know what the defense team tried to do. We don't know. I'm not aware of any rulings that the judge may have made, because apparently, it was off limits to bring the photos in. And what did the defense team have it tested? Did the defense team, submit this for private analysis? Typically, I've been hired in cases here in New York City for the defense, and when I find something, I notify the lawyers that I'm working with, and then they notify the prosecutor, and then the prosecutor notifies the crime scene unit, and they come out and deal with what I found. All right, I don't collect it after the fact. Like, for instance, I had a shooting investigation that I was involved in, and the officers were the defendants in the case. They were indicted, and 18 months later, I'm examining a van that was involved with the shooting, and I find ballistic evidence in the rain well that should have been found at the crime scene at the day of the incident. But 18 months later, I find it in the van, rain well, and and that's the process that had to occur. Then I had, then the crime scene people come out, photograph it, and they collect it.
Yeah. Is that the Sean Bell case?
Yes, it was.
Yeah. Marianne, yes, this is the inside the garage of 34 Fairview. This picture was taken by an unknown person, but Alan Jackson is right here leaning down, observing this inside the garage, and he had a private investigator there with him. What's your thoughts, chat? We'll go to the chat. What's your thoughts on what this could be? Why is it there? Dr. Lamposada, she had eyes on this photograph, and she tried to testify to it, but she did give her expert opinion about John O'Keefe's injuries on the back of his head and being indicative of hitting something like this. She went to great lengths, and kudos to her and to Alan Jackson for leading her into that, because I think it rang very true to the jury. The jury listened to this testimony that she gave. They were very attentive. They listened. They took, put this stuff back in the back of their minds. And when it came time to deliberating, there were many points that were brought up. What I like about the 4 days of deliberation is it showed us that they didn't just come to this agreement without any type of discussion. They went through the evidence. They went through it. And we'll hear more about it in the days to come. But this jury did their job. They did it the right way. So, yeah.
Ladies, folks, I've had crime scenes like this. I was talking to Ron offline before we came on. I would have cut that wood out, especially the 2x4s in between the studs. All right. I would cut those top two out and take them to the lab. I would cut that concrete floor up where the crack is, because things could get down into that crack that, you know, not necessarily been altered by whatever was done here, or whether, you know, bleach, chemicals, or paint, whatever was used to try to clean something up. And I would cut that out and submit it all to the lab for analysis.
And in 2025, if you were to go in there, or someone Ed Wallace equivalent that, you know, didn't have time talking about this case, because obviously you wouldn't be able to go in there and, you know, give it a fair and impartial collect. I mean, you probably could go in there, but giving testimony would be tough. But if somebody of your caliber went in there and cut out these pieces and did everything that you explained, you know, people asked about the MVAC and luminol. You talked about that.
You could take all the clothing now. You could take that John O'Keefe's upper body shirt and MVAC it right now, and see if we can't get DNA from Higgins or Albert or the dog. Okay, because I mean, the analyst in the lab, she just did a couple of swabs, and we don't know, you know, how effective that would be. But, you know, we know that the MVAC had taken a rock that was used to kill somebody, and that rock was processed with swabs for DNA, and they didn't get a decent sample. But years and years later, the rock was MVAC'd, and they got the perp.
Yeah, it was almost 30 years later or something like that. It was a long time. We had the owner of MVAC, Jared Bradley, on with us, and I'd gladly get him back on to talk about the MVAC and how it could be used after the fact. Because when we listened to Paula talk, she said something really compelling at the end, and that was, she mentioned John O'Keefe's family, and that her heart breaks for them, and she's sorry, she's a mother, but she said, we need to find out who did this to John O'Keefe, who murdered him. And that was really compelling to me. That really hit home. I don't know about you guys in the chat. I don't know about you, Ed. But when I heard her say that, that resonated with everything that we believe in, everything that we talk about here on Crime Time with DutyRon and Ed Wallace, is getting down to the bottom of what happened. We don't know up until now, to this day. We don't know what happened to him and who did what. It's just speculation. But doing things like that, and who gets that shirt back? John O'Keefe's family gets that shirt back. The people have questions. I saw it in the chat. Ed,
a lot of times that stays in the property clerk and it's never returned to the family.
So how would anybody get to MVAC it?
Well, it's in the property clerk of the prosecutor's office right now. So if you if the FBI steps in and says, look, we want that shirt, you know, and we're going to MVAC it.
Yeah.
Right. Or you can get a court order with a different judge in a different jurisdiction and say, okay, give us the shirt, we're going to MVAC it.
Ed, doesn't this look like a curb, a high curb? Yeah.
Well, you know, that's inside the garage, and you see that a lot in the construction. They'll surround the perimeter of the garage, because remember, the garage is slab on grade here. There's no you know, cellar or basement underneath this. Okay, and so that curb is usually put around there for water reasons, and then your sill plate goes on top of that. So there will be anchor bolts that come through the sill plate and for the stud walls around the perimeter of the garage. That's how it's framed that way.
Right. Yeah. Oblivious Benson's with us, our good friend Kat in the chat. She says, for the record, they have the carpet. Karen paid to have it kept in a climate control facility. And they got these stills from a video of the follow-up search with her attorneys and the property owner.
What carpet?
I don't know. Some people, I heard people talking that there was a carpet in this garage. Some people put carpeting down in their garage. I've seen it done. My brother.
Yeah, I've seen it in Florida where people use their garage as like a man cave.
My brother-in-law does it upstate New York. I don't know why, but you know,
got to be freezing in there.
Some people, you know, like, yeah.
Obey, ice cream, obey, Oblivious Benson, ice cream.
All right, someone's saying, question mark, what is MVAC in the chat?
Okay, MVAC is a device used to take an aqueous solution for DNA. It was invented, Jared Bradley's father invented it after Jack in the Box had an outbreak of killing people with their hamburgers, so that it could be used to test surfaces and so forth for biological materials. But then it morphed into being used in forensics, where it's like you go to the supermarket and you rent one of those Stanley steamers to clean your carpet. Okay, so it has like a similar system. It's going to inject the liquid into the surface, and then you'll pull the MVAC across it, and it'll vacuum that substance back into a container, and then you take the container and you have it tested for DNA.
Outstanding. Thank you, Ed, for that explanation. We had the owner, the person who invented it was his father, who's no longer with us. May he rest in peace. But Jared Bradley is the vice president of MVAC, and they're in Utah. There's many of these units in many state police. We know that the Idaho State Crime Lab has one. We know that New York State Police, their crime lab has one. The NYPD, we were trying to get it to them, but I don't know if they bought it. But it is what it is. Michael Bass has got a comment up. Thank you for being a member. Ed?
Yeah, you read it and tell them.
Michael Bass says, that is impressive, Ed. Most cops don't know construction like that. Well, Ed is an engineer, and he is a man of all knowledge. He designed he put this, I know I'm not going to say this right, but he put the specs together, the drawings, the specs together for his second home in an undisclosed location in an undisclosed state. So Ed's like an architect.
I'm an architect, not an engineer. That's correct.
There you go. So he's a badass, man. He is a badass. Let's look at these super chats. And we did this one with Tara. Thank you, Donna, for becoming a new member. Emily, the first member ever on Crime Time with DutyRon, member for over 62 months. Thanks. Props to both of you. Well, no. Thank you. Emily Parkinson is here, $2. I have so many questions. My head's spinning. Thank you. We covered this Amp BB2 one. Thank you. Send me a message on dutyron.com. Sandy Gordon, thank you for the 10. Rosemary J, thank you for the 2. The truth has won. Yeah, 100%. Cat Loves Catskills says it's astonishing to me that the Commonwealth thought that they would get away with any of these shenanigans. Despicable and very dishonorable. Rest in peace, Police Officer John O'Keefe. Amen. Amen. Cat. Larissa Harris, thank you for the 20. Watch Higgins, trial 1, unable to answer questions about being in the Sally Port with Chief Berkowitz. And when Karen Reed's car arrived, he pauses and behaves strange, and Deborah's false memory was real. Deborah was, I'm telling you right now, I have nothing good to say about her. She shouldn't be a cop. She basically came in and perjured herself and said that her memory changed. No, your memory didn't change. You saw what you saw. You told the FBI it, and now you're changing your story. Bullshit. Where is it?
Pardon my French.
All right, I'll save that.
But you're an asshole.
Thank you, man. Thank you. Let's take a look at this, and then we'll wrap it up. John O'Keefe's family after the not guilty verdict on Wednesday out at in the Seaport. Enjoying a nice freedom dinner. I understand there was a lot of people there, and also Turtle Boy was there. He got invited. So many people there, and they were at Maestros at the Seaport. I actually was at the Seaport with my beautiful wife twice. It's a great little spot, and this is them, and this is the family. Oh, that's
maybe not.
Where are they? I was looking at it. That's pretty funny.
They've been to Mastro's just a few hours earlier. She had been waiting to learn her fate at Norfolk County Superior Court. Reed and her family addressed reporters before they went inside the restaurant.
I fought for John O'Keefe harder than anyone.
Right now, we're still numb. We're numb. We're numb. We're happy. We're numb. We're celebrating. We're getting together as a family in here, and it's another couple of weeks decompress.
Reed's attorneys say they're
Look at this guy. She's going to be a cop for a long time. She did her job. She did nothing of the sort. She got up on the stand and got selective amnesia. She's a piece of shit. And for you to support that, I say the same thing to you. You could just make like a tree and leave.
happy with the verdict, but the story isn't over yet. They believe there's still evidence that would implicate someone else for John O'Keefe's death. Again, Karen Reed waking up in Boston Seaport this morning. Of course, we will follow any new information that comes to us.
So it was good to see them have a nice meal and know that they didn't have to return to that shitty court with that shitty judge and the Commonwealth, who was hell-bent on going after the girl. So here we are. I want to thank everybody for hanging out with us for an hour. Actually, this has been 2 hours because we did an hour show before this on the arrest of Suzanne Morphew's murderer, Barry Morphew. Hopefully they get it right the second time around, even though there wasn't really a first trial, but he was close to it. And then they dropped all the charges. Good to see everybody in the chat. Look at who snuck one in, Ed, before we are done. Our good friend.
Shakram, Rhino Girl.
Did you read that one out, Ed?
Hey, DutyRon Ed and DutyRoners. It was reported by the Boston Herald that Karen is paying for a piece of the carpet from Fairview home in temperature-controlled room. Okie dokie.
Yeah, we just heard that from Oblivious Benson. So, but thank you for that. Thank you.
OB, the method.
Yeah, she's a badass, OB.
He's a bad mama jamma.
Yeah, so that's it. That's all we got. I hope everyone enjoyed this live stream. Again, we are in the works of having Attorney Unetti and Robert Alessi coming on as a team. I actually just asked for Dave, and he was like, me and Rob would like to come on with you and Ed.
100%. I can't wait to meet Rob.
Yeah.
Big fan. Big fan.
I think there'll be a lot of great conversation between Ed, Rob, myself, and Mr. Unetti. I'm looking forward to it. I'm hoping that maybe we have Alan Jackson join us from California. I'm sure he's back home and enjoying some R&R with his family. He did the whole team did an unbelievable job. Miss Little, everybody that was there behind the scenes, all the interns that were doing a lot of things for free behind the scenes and putting together all these different, things that need to be done. So kudos to everybody on the team. I want to thank our moderators, our replay viewers, our super chatters. We are growing. We're continuing to grow, close to 507,000 subscribers. Thank you, thank you, thank you from the bottom of our hearts. Ed, they want to dance. They want you. Oh, here we go. Oh boy, it's happening, ladies and gentlemen. Ed, do you still have your props around?
I still do.
He does. That Stop and Shop bag never gets old, Ed. I'll tell you that right now. The solo cups, the Stop and Shop bag, the leaf blower, it never gets old. Let us know what you think down below in the comment section. One or two people said they didn't like the Bag Boys routine, right? Didn't we get that in some of the chats?
Yes, we got it.
Listen, we're not going to be for everybody, and everybody's not going to be for us. We can't always please everyone. But
we're going to auction off the forensic Stop and Shop bag.
Yeah, should we do a giveaway for the Stop and Shop bag? And
we'll autograph it, you and I, and we'll give it to one of our subscribers here.
I think that's a good idea. We're gonna retire the Stop and Shop bag, and one lucky viewer will get a chance to have that Stop and Shop bag. Make sure you frame it. Make sure you preserve it. Put it in the archives.
I'm gonna have to hit it with the UV light so nobody has my DNA and fingerprints.
On behalf of Crime Time with DutyRon and Ed Wallace, we want to thank everybody for being here. We want to thank you for becoming new members. Thank you for gifting members. Look, somebody gifted a bunch of memberships. Thinking for myself. Thank you for the generosity, and we appreciate you guys. Have a great weekend. Make sure you get out there, get some sun safely. Get out there and enjoy the nice weather. At least here on the East Coast, we got some nice weather. We're going to enjoy it. And my wife and I are going to head up to Northport tomorrow and walk along the water, watch some sailboats go out, have a nice little lunch. So we got a nice little thing planned for tomorrow. So I hope everybody enjoys. Ed, you said it in the last show, but you got to say it in this one.
Oh, yes. I know you're tired. I know you're weary. I know your plans don't include me, but still here we are. Somebody should use that in lyrics in a song. But anyhow, you just spent 2 hours with us. 2 hours. I want to thank you very much for sharing your time with us. I know you can get your true crime fix anywhere you like on YouTube. So we appreciate you hanging out with us for 2 hours. Thank you for everything. Thank you for your support. And as always, stay safe, stay prepared, and watch your six.
Amen to that, brother. And I want to send strength, prayers, and positive vibes to the O'Keefe family. We hope that we can get to justice. And Ed, I know that you would volunteer, you and any of the manpower that you have behind you. You have a lot of great men and women. I met them who are part of your team to go out there at 34 Fairview or anything that these attorneys would request of you. You would be there in a heartbeat. I would drive out there with you for extra security. You know, it's always good to have an extra gun or two with you. So it's all good. We'll go out there and we'll do what we got to do. So on behalf of Crime Time with DutyRon Ed Wallace, we want to thank everybody for being here. God bless, and we'll see you soon. Good night from New York.